Hello, and welcome to the John Ark Show. Today's episode is called Los Angeles is Now More Dangerous Than Detroit. Before we begin, I want to encourage you to subscribe, like, comment, and follow us. Also, remember to click on the notification bell so you can be notified every time we upload a new episode. I'd like to tell you about a service called HollywoodIsCalling.com. It's a great service that allows you to purchase live phone calls and talk to your favorite celebrities. So check them out. It's something you can do for yourself, or you can buy as a gift for someone you know. A live 15-second call is $19.95, and a live 30-second call is $29.95. So give it a try. HollywoodIsCalling.com. Now, let's get started. When most people think of LA, they think of the LA as it was between the years 1980 and 2010. The sun was always shining. People were moving there from all over the country for warm weather and maybe even to take a shot at a career in show business. They would always see how beautiful LA was on all the TV shows. They would watch movies filmed there and fantasize about moving there for a better, happier, and more pleasant life. Well, that LA doesn't exist anymore. The weather is still relatively nice, just like it was back in the day, but everything else has changed so dramatically that you are literally putting your physical and financial life in jeopardy by moving to LA these days, or even by vacationing there. In fact, if you compare your physical safety living in Los Angeles to your physical safety living in Detroit, it's really Detroit that is a safer place to go. Let's give you some examples. If you have a problem now in LA and you call 911 for help, the police will sometimes send an unarmed response team to your location to try and work things out without weapons. That sounds like a recipe for disaster because the reason most criminals don't act crazy when the police respond is precisely because the police are wearing weapons. Now, this unarmed response protocol has been tried in other places. They're usually social workers who show up and try and reason with the people. In one city, the social workers were shot at so many times during one weekend that they all quit the following Monday. The very notion that a social worker is going to show up at a 911 call and start trying to diffuse tensions by asking people about their feelings and recommending compromise, it sounds like a recipe for disaster. In fact, it sounds childish, childishly naive. The truth of the matter is that even when someone is completely deranged on drugs, by the time 911 has been called, it's usually way too late to discuss things reasonably. Chances are, by then the violence has already begun. In Detroit, the police chief is not tolerating violence on the part of criminals, and he is sending actual, real-life armed police officers on 911 calls because he is still in touch with the real world. He's not delusional. He's not taking his action cues from the media or from deranged politicians. He's in touch with reality. In Los Angeles, they want to fight crime with daisies and happy talk because that's what the media is trying to push. In reality, that doesn't work in the real world. We believe that any reporter or politician who believes that people should be sent to 911 calls without weapons should be first deputized on a temporary basis for a couple of weeks and then compelled to go on police runs with the police so they can see what it feels like to get shot at and assaulted physically and verbally all day long for several weeks. This new approach to law enforcement was put into place after all the riots, and it's causing even more people to leave LA. In fact, the number one reason people are moving out of Los Angeles and California is not just the insane taxes, but it's the explosion of lawlessness combined with the reluctance of law enforcement to fight crime. And on those rare occasions, when they do arrest somebody, there is a high probability that the prosecutors will not charge them. In Detroit, there was very little civil unrest or rioting going on recently because the police chief would not tolerate it and the criminals knew it. Do you know who else knew it? All the professional criminals and provocateurs who are hired for $50 an hour and sent into to cities to riot and cause mayhem for all sorts of strange reasons. Some of them were allegedly even paid $1,500 bonuses if they could get themselves arrested. These criminals knew that the police in Detroit wouldn't tolerate their nonsense, so they avoided Detroit. Another major problem in LA is what's known as tax violence. That's the new name for taxation policies that are so insane and so out of control that they are constantly raising them as a form of financial violence or wealth confiscation against the few remaining people and companies who are still making money or have an income. What's happening in LA is that you can riot and burn down buildings and not get arrested or prosecuted. But soccer moms driving their kids to school who happen to drive 5 miles over the speed limit, they get hit with hundreds of dollars in traffic fines. It's like they have SWAT teams converging from 12 different directions to to pull these soccer moms over and write them as many tickets as possible. It is really sleazy. Now, if you have a family get together on the holidays and you invite too many relatives to your house, the city of LA wants your neighbors to call and let them know so they can send the police to your house and arrest you while you're eating your turkey. In LA, it's okay to inject yourself with heroin on the sidewalk and then go out and rob a store, but having dinner with all your relatives on a holiday is now seen as a problem. Remember, when tourists and families used to go to California on vacation to sightsee, to go to Disney, to go to Hollywood, well, that's not a good idea anymore. If you go to Venice Beach, for example, just to look around as a tourist, you will be shocked at how it's become a mecca for heroin users and homeless criminals. In fact, if you look at some of what's going on in Venice Beach, there are now so many criminals and homeless people and tents and junkies on the beach that in some places you can't even see the sand anymore. That's how bad the congestion is with the wrong element. If you go to YouTube and search for videos of Venice Beach in Los Angeles in the last 12 months, it'll look like something medieval. Centuries ago, when kings and lords lived in the castles, if you went a few miles down the road from the castle, you would have seen all sorts of peasants living in the forest, and most of them were struggling to survive. Similarly, what's interesting now is that if you go to Beverly Hills, you will see one normal street, and then the next street over, you'll see a large tent community full of heroin addicts and homeless people. Some of them will take great pleasure in getting up out of their tents, walking over to the front gate of a $20 million mansion, and deliberately going to the bathroom right then and there in front of the mansion's security camera. The next really big problem is the street crime that now takes place in the nicest and most expensive neighborhoods. That sort of thing used to be limited to high crime areas like Venice Beach or East LA. Now it happens every day in Santa Monica, Beverly Hills, and Studio City. In fact, it's such a big problem now that many businesses are reluctant to remove the plywood they've covered up their store windows with because they don't want to be targeted by criminals again. I'll tell you what else is really interesting, and that is the fact that some cities are now contemplating or requiring a COVID test to come visit them. Now think about this. These same cities don't care about checking to see if you're a convicted murderer or drug dealer or rapist before you come visit them, but they want to require COVID tests. So if personal safety is your primary concern, as it is for most people, then there is absolutely no question that living in Detroit, where the police actually respond to 911 calls, is far more desirable than living in LA, where all they care about is making sure that families don't sing at the table during the holidays. So with that, I want to thank you for watching and tell you that we're going to have more great celebrity interviews coming up and more breaking news stories in the future. So we want to encourage you to subscribe to our channel and click on the notification bell so you can get notified every time we post a story. Bye-bye.